here we go. We've got my family and Sophia up here. Sophia, take it away.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Doing great.
Yes.
Great. Okay, I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves to everyone for those who don't know who you guys are.
I'm Chase. I'm the son of John Dupin.
Ooh, right here.
I'm Ken. I'm the father of John, the grandfather of Ethan, and the grandfather of John. Chase.
That's what happens when you become a grandfather. They all become the same name.
Same name, yeah.
Yeah.
We still feel special, though.
Good.
There's something.
We do.
My name's Ethan. I am the son of John Dupont.
Yes. That's the French pronunciation. I think we should start really, introducing ourselves. The son of. I think that'd be pretty awesome.
I think that'd be good too.
Pretty
Go back to medieval
I'm John.
times.
I'm the son of Ken, and I'm telling you, we love each other. It's great to. I also have a daughter. She was running Way Kids during the first service, but she is in this. Yes, Landon McGregor. She is in the house too.
Yeah,
so
she's probably my favorite. Sorry. I'm just going to let you guys know that.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Well, I am excited to be up here with you guys. It's an honor to interview you, ask you these questions, and just kind of give everyone a peek into the Dupin men. It's Father's Day, and so that's why we're doing this, and just want to unpack what it means to be a son, what it means to be a dad, and how God has called us to live that out. So I want to start off with asking you guys, what is a distinguishing characteristic of the Dupin men?
Yeah, I would say a big one is our competitive nature, especially when it comes to board games.
Yeah.
And Settlers of Catan.
Yes.
That is a fantastic game. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was talking to my wife, Lauren, this morning. I was like, the most excited, we're going on vacation this week, which I'm excited about. But I was like, the most exciting thing I'm excited about when we go on vacation is just beating my dad in Settlers of Catan.
Yeah.
There's just something special.
And you do, because you cheat.
Oh my goodness.
He turns everybody against me.
Okay.
That's strategic
there's some issues
manipulation.
here.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
We want to stick to the script, guys.
Yes.
Yeah. Kidding. What else? What's another characteristic of you guys?
Yeah, I would say something that I notice in all of us is that we like to talk, which, is kind of helpful because y'all are pastors. But
Thank you.
yeah.
Comes with the job.
But I think we like to give advice, and sometimes it's not really wanted or needed.
Unsolicited advice is definitely a family. Definitely.
That's it. So I would say that we do like to talk.
Yes.
Okay, you like to talk, competitive. These are some really great qualities, you guys.
Yeah.
They can be sometimes.
Yes.
I think it's important for people to recognize, though, that you guys don't have it all together, right? Mm-hmm. And that you have had to learn and grow through sin and setbacks. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, throughout your guys' lives, becoming sons, being fathers, what has been your favorite season of fatherhood, your favorite season of sonhood, and how have you seen some of these things like competitiveness, maybe some selfishness play into those, and how have you learned from that?
Yeah, I would say this just to bridge these two questions. My grandfather, Clyde, his dad, became a follower of Jesus at 9 years old, and you can tell that story. And that has been passed down from generations, that there is a high view of Christ and his church and involvement. Simultaneously, I think each generation of men have had to fight pride and selfishness. We can quickly, it is the tension, right? On one hand, following Jesus is selflessness, and yet I think we wake up every day still thinking, man, I want this family to be about me. I want this room to be about me, and we have to settle that every day. And I can speak for myself, but I think it's been a family conversation as well. I mean, you were kind of sharing a little bit as a newly married man. I don't want to tell your story. So.
No, yeah. I mean, I think pride and selfishness is in all of us, but I think one thing in the Dupin men is I think we like to believe that our way is right. And, I had a conversation with Lauren this morning, and I just believed that I was right in what I was doing. And it wasn't until she called some things out at me and was like, hey, I think you're seeing it this way, and I want to call you to something higher. And so that kind of goes into another thing is I think what makes who we are up here is first off Jesus, and second off the women that are in our life. And I think they play a special part. So.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I love that. So Jesus and the special women in your life make you guys better men, better fathers, better sons. I love that.
Yeah.
All about women power.
He'll be married 50 years in July.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then Granddad,
So he just, my father was 71 years.
71 years. Yeah.
And July 19th, Joy and I will have been married 50 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we got married when we were 12. And
That's a joke.
but
That's good, Sophia. Good,
Just
good
making sure
qualification
people
there.
know.
I even throw myself.
Yeah.
There is a high value on the covenant
Yeah.
marriage. Not just being married, but the covenant of marriage. And so I think I think us as men are great husbands. That's all I can conclude.
Yes. Let's stop right there. Let's just say that, right?
Like that. So, what have all of those years of marriage, of becoming parents, what have you guys learned are really good things and blessings to give to your children, to teach your children as they're growing up? And even for you, Ethan and Chase, what are things that you've seen your dad implement in your home throughout the years that have been a blessing to you?
I would say, my dad, our family culture has really emphasized on, we talk about things, and we don't just, chit chat behind the person's back. If we have a problem with, my brother or my dad, I'm gonna go to him and I'm gonna talk to him, and we're gonna listen, and we're gonna try and listen, and we're going to reconcile. And I would say that is just a value that I've really noticed in our culture. And now, because we have it in our family culture, I now can walk out into the world, and, our world is naturally susceptible to gossip. It's a very easy thing to fall into. And, when I hear that, I'm just like, hey, I don't always tell people straight up, like, stop, stop what you're doing. That's wrong. But like, I'm more just kind of naturally just try and change. Hey, let's change the subject. I don't think we need to talk about that. Or if we are going to talk about it, go talk to the person, So I would say that is a value that I want to take into my future family is let's talk about it.
That's good.
What about you, Ethan?
I'm sorry.
Oh, you go.
Oh.
Sophia, one of the things that I think back over my life, and I look in the other direction as to what they do. I haven't always had the priorities correct. I could be out changing the world, helping everybody else, but not take out the trash. I mean, just little things. And just be this Don Quixote, this gonna change, gonna do this and that. And probably needed to focus a lot more local than global. And even yet I can struggle with it. But my wife's been patient with me, honestly, with that. And but I think that is uniquely probably maybe something that ministers struggle with, is changing the world but not taking out the trash. Really.
Yeah. How would you speak to the father or encourage the father who maybe, like you're saying, is putting all of their energy, time, their whole life into their career or their job, but their family is kind of suffering because of that and coming second? How would you challenge them to reverse it?
Yeah. I think this is what has been my experience. And I saw my dad, of course, succeed and fail again and try to get that balance. I think, first of all, men want to be competent. I think we're designed to leave our house and go out and conquer something, and we want to be good at it. And if we're not good at it, we don't want to do it. So we want to find out what that thing is that we're good at. I don't think that we as men are naturally competent at relationships. And I think that's why we get married, so that we don't just have these public and paternal male relationships, that we actually learn how to be intimate and learn how to be close and learn how to have a relationship with our children. And I think that's the importance of the women in our life, right? That we're rubbing up against that tension. But the simple answer is, I think it's seasonal. I think that it is also amendable. So there's just going to be seasons where we're focused on the work and we're focused on trying to provide for our family. But we also need to listen to the cues of our wives and our children to say, okay, now is a time that you need to come back and spend some time and some focus time. And for Tammy and I, we tried to build that literally into our week, where as our kids were growing up, that we always were around the table eating dinner together at least 4 nights a week, which meant that there were 3 nights that I could be out or we could be out of the house doing things.
Yeah.
But there were 4 nights where it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we miss the next big thing. If that thing is going to make whatever the most successful, that we're going to miss it because we're going to sit around the table together. So I think it's paying attention to that and partnering with the voice in our life, which is our wives.
That's so good. I love that. What about things that maybe you guys thought were good? So building blocks, values that you over the years have had to sift out, that you've had to realize this actually isn't working, this isn't fruitful. What are some things personally that you've had to remove?
I'll let you guys start. What are some things you're going to say, I'm not doing that?
I'd say a big one, and I think it comes off as like something that's like, oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think as like vulnerability as a whole is a really incredible thing when it's used wisely. I think some of us as like preachers and as
this is gonna hurt.
as like just as people of faith,
I like it.
I think we can use strategic vulnerability in the sense of like, I'm going to use vulnerability so that people will see me as, oh, look at him. He's putting his pride down or he's putting his selfishness down. But in reality, I'm puffing myself up because the culture that I've lived in and the environment that I've lived in is like, hey, being vulnerable is a good thing. But I think when I walk into my next season of life, and I think we've gotten better at this, is like really authentically doing a deep dive of why am I being vulnerable? Am I being vulnerable so that people can look at me, or am I being vulnerable so that someone can see what I'm going through and reflect it on their life? And so I'd say that I think it's a big one.
It's good. No, and I recall them really helping me. There were conversations where it was like, "Hey, Dad, you told that illustration, but there's another part of it that you withheld that really would have been that people would have viewed you negatively, and you guys calling me out on it, and just saying, hey, if you're going to be vulnerable." Go all the way.
Yeah.
Or, don't make your motives, as you said, pride. That's good.
Oh, it's good. Dr. Ken, may I call you doctor? I like the way that sounds, more professional. Can you talk a little bit about this concept of joyless Christianity and how you have navigated passing down your faith to your son and then seeing it flourish in your grandsons? What has that journey been like for you?
I would say, first of all, that our faith transfers by osmosis. In other words, by virtue of the fact of proximity, by just being around us. I think they see a lot more than they hear. All of those little sermonettes we give, I don't think they're as much as what they see us do. And I think most of the transference of values to John and to faith were in moments when I didn't even know they were watching. Wasn't even aware that they were being transferred. And probably the times when I was really trying to force them to transfer, they probably didn't. And I would say in reflection, I think I should have had a lot more joy and not been so uptight about this. I wish that I had more joy as a believer. Fun, just flat out, just more fun.
Yeah.
And I think there is that it has its own contagiousness to the people are drawn to it. We're sure not drawn to negative and down and fearful people.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have been more fun, honestly, as I look in reflection on my life, because I think it's contagious. And people want to be around that. I think that about my own kids. There's a contagiousness about it. It wasn't that I was always that way. I just think I should have been more so. And so I'm catching up now.
Yeah. I think you're doing a great job. And I think that's important to lean into for dads in the room, is that teaching your children to be excited about Jesus by showing them, like you said, it's not necessarily just like hammering it into their heads and telling them over and over, but showing them that you can be a man and be excited about the gospel, excited about the love of God, and how that would shape our churches of the future and change the way we see things. Yeah. So I think that is really awesome.
Yeah, if I could just add to that. You made, like, I know how you grew up was definitely different than how I grew up. So just to give some, I guess, more detail, you grew up in a rules and regulations faith.
Definitely.
And you passed down to Faith and I, that's my sister, a wilder faith.
Yes, I did.
And so I want to say this: you did make our faith fun, sometimes almost too fun.
I'm glad to hear that.
But that's, I think, your personality, and I think what you decided. Hey, I get a chance to do this differently. So I appreciated how you made the black and white, but the gray as well.
You know, I've said this to you before. I don't think I ever enjoyed being a Christian until I went off to college. And it was a completely different atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting to me how that changed. And so, to model that to my children, I think even more so. I look at the people in the New Testament, and they were just having fun. As tragic as their lives were, and as difficult as they were, they had joy.
Yeah.
So good. What does forgiveness and reconciliation look like in the family? What do you guys think it should look like? Maybe share a story or two about what it has looked like for you guys, and why is forgiveness and reconciliation so important?
I can definitely talk about reconciliation. When I was about 14 through 16, I was a jerk, to put it straight. And I had a lot of pride, as middle schoolers and early high school kids have. And I remember, like, we gotten fights all the time, and they didn't end
not
well.
fist fights.
No,
although I wanted to.
Same. Yeah, but this wasn't necessarily like a one-night reconciliation, but this was like year-long. We were struggling, and there was a lot of friction in our relationship, but through all of that, you did well. I had to have a heart change, but you did pursue reconciliation with me, and now I feel and I see the fruits of not giving up on each other.
Yeah.
And fighting for this relationship, even though it felt weird for a couple years, and it's kind of crazy, to say that it was years, but I mean that's what it was. And now, I've learned articulation. I was struggling articulating how I was actually feeling. So that has helped me. But, just now I can feel and see the fruits of fighting it out for each other.
And I'll say this too. Those were hard years, and we had to do some of that publicly, right? But you are transformed, and I don't think it was because of anything that I said to you. I think it was because of your hearing from the Holy Spirit, but you always were ready and willing to forgive me. You were always ready and willing to say you're sorry. And I think it did get us through that. And I want to say that to anybody right now who has an estranged relationship with a child. I do believe that fathers have to lead the way in that. And I know you want him or her or them to call you up and say, Dad, thank you for everything you've ever done for me. And I just spent the whole night counting up all the ways that you blessed me as a child and a teenager and paying for my college. And I'm so sorry for being a jerk. It's probably not going to happen. And if it does, man, God bless you. What's probably going to happen is you are going to hear this today and make a phone call and say, I want you to know I love you, I'm crazy about you, and I want to do whatever it takes to have a relationship with you for the rest of our lives. And I want to start by apologizing and then just owning things. And I learned that from you, Dad. I mean, there was a season, probably a decade, where I would get these random phone calls from my dad. And it was him reflecting on his life, in middle age. And he would just call me up and say, hey, I had this thought and I know I hurt you when that happened and I'm sorry. So I think that's the biggest thing. If there's fathers and future fathers here today, you're gonna go through this. And Chase, you were the first kid who actually said, I don't like you. Right? Your sister didn't like me, but she was like, hey.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Is that fair, Landon?
Pretty accurate.
And then you just went and built tree houses and stuff to get out your frustration.
It's the middle child syndrome, man.
All right, I'm sorry.
Man,
Good.
no, it's so good. So what I kind of hear you saying is that dads need to be able to apologize to their children, right?
Yes.
To walk in humility.
To lead the way in it.
To lead the way.
Yes.
And to admit when they're wrong.
Yes.
And for children to also be able to do the same. And that they can't do the same if they're not seeing it done by their dads.
Yep.
That's cool. Yeah. So leaning into that, how can men who are not fathers yet be positive role models in this church? If you're not a father, what does it look like to still have an influence where you're at?
You take it?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest influential moments in my life outside of my family were in this church. And I think it was going through what was once called Kids Focus. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but and going through small group leaders who would pour their time and energy into my life. I mean, I remember as a fourth grader, my small group leader was moving to LA for a job, and I just remember weeping just because of the impact and the time and the energy that his name's Lance, put into my life.
I remember Lance.
And he showed up every Sunday, encouraging me, having fun with me, laughing with me. Honestly, I can't even remember really what we talked about. And I think that that's okay. But knowing that there was someone in my life that was there for me at such a young age, and he showed up, and he was that face that I was like, okay, he's there.
Yeah.
And I can trust this person. Goes miles than anything that he said or I could say to some other young kid. Yeah. But just showing up and being there, I think is the biggest thing. So.
Wow. It's really amazing how God has obviously placed like a awesome grandfather and father in your guys' life to mentor you and lead you, but it's not just them, that he's also called other men to speak into your life who are a part of this church. And so I think just speaking to the men in here that aren't dads yet, that you still have a powerful voice and a powerful impact to invest into this community. And being a spiritual father is just as important and just as needed. So just lean into, if God's calling you to be this spiritual father, whether it's through Way Youth or mentorship, that is not second class, but that's just as important as fatherhood.
Yeah, and I think too, it's the importance of, if you're a father or a future father, have your kids in church. And I know that sounds like so old school, but the reality is, look, I'm all about organized sports and taking vacation and all of that. I think that's gotten lopsided, though. I think in our culture, fathers are wanting their kids to be the next Michael Jordan or LeBron James, or I don't watch baseball, but I'm sure there's a metaphor out there. And so they're like, he's going to be in practice, and then he's going to be, evening practices, and then there's tournaments on Sundays, and all of a sudden you look and your son or your daughter has been influenced by the crazy parents on the sidelines, the minimum wage coach, who's barely parenting his own kids. Loves the game and loves his players, but is not their father. Instead of a father just saying, hey, you know what? This is great. And if you're a phenomenon athlete, we'll figure that out. But every Sunday or whatever, we're going to be a part of a spiritual community, and we're going to be consistent at it, because there are voices you need to hear beyond mine. And there is a holy God that you need to be in a spiritual family to learn how to look like him and love like him. And it's going to be in the context of other leaders. And so that's just prioritize the local church. And if there's anything I've learned from my father and his father, that's not always easy, because the culture is fighting. And these guys were in soccer and other sports, and we had to sometimes say, hey, he's not going to be there. Or sometimes, we said, hey, we're going to miss church for this thing, but not everything. So
can I
a little sermon
step
there.
into that as well?
That's good.
I want to say probably the most impactful for me wasn't necessarily about like one-on-one time with me, and a mentor, although that is great. Some of the most impactful things that has happened in my life is just what I see. And I've gotten to grow up in this church, and I've gotten to see my dad's friends love their wives and take care of them. And it hasn't even been what anyone said to me. It's just like, what do I see? And I think for the men out there, it's find someone to mentor, but also just live a life worth someone replicating, and know that us young men, we see you, and we do see you love your wives, and we see you hug them and acknowledge them, and hug and acknowledge your kids. So that's been very, very impactful for me.
That's so good. So good. Wow. Well, I want to ask this final question to kind of wrap up our discussion. What do you guys think that the future father, in light of where the culture is going, what's happening in our times, what is the future father going to have to look like and implement? And how would you encourage the future father to not maybe be weighed down or discouraged by generational patterns and what's happening out there?
You want to take that?
I would say that if I had to say anything to fathers, I think they're the greatest dads who have ever lived are living right now. I mean that. I mean the ones that are investing in their kids the most, I think live today, and I like that. And I would like that even more if that commitment had a spiritual focus. So I see hope. I really do. And I'm excited about the fact that I see values changing, and what used to be country clubs and what were Lions clubs and Kiwanis clubs are now soccer games, and they're travel ball, and they're all of these kind of things. It's not that the others were bad. I've just seen those things replaced by family engagements. And I like that. I like that. And in that sense, I see the best fathers, I guess, who've ever lived, honestly. And I like that. At least what I see.
Yeah.
What I see.
What about you, Pastor John?
I think I would definitely agree with that. I think there's a lot against fatherhood right now.
Yeah.
I think it has been minimized. I think it's been caricaturized as something that's not really needed. I think there's a whole culture that is fighting against it, not just fatherhood, but even masculinity as a whole. That's a whole sermon series. But I would say for fathers and fathers-to-be, God gave you this role. It's one of the most powerfully significant roles in your life. Step into it with confidence that God has given you this role, and don't apologize for it, and don't be embarrassed by it, and don't let the culture tell you that it is wrong to be a strong man in the house who has convictions, but is also humble and is also compassionate, and pass that down. I just think that fatherhood needs to be, especially in the church, the role of a father and the responsibility of a father to lead, to protect, to provide, to stay when it's hard. 71 years my grandfather, 50 years my father, 25 years next May for me. That doesn't mean that there weren't moments of great anguish and hardship in marriage. And I think fathers have to learn how to get around other fathers and figure out, man, I don't like being married right now. I don't like being a father right now. But there's other men who are saying, we're going to lock arms with you and help you get through this season. And I think that's what the church needs to be. Yeah. That's why I'm so encouraged by things like brotherhood, where these men are meeting and they're going, hey, let's step up, and not in an arrogant way or like we're experts at this, but just humble men who say there's more for Jesus to do in us in this role as men, as husbands, and especially as fathers.
Wow. So good. Guys, can we just say thank you? What a privilege.